Now, Zomato is the leader in the food delivery market in India. In the month of October this year, CEO of Zomato, Deepinder Goyal, wrote in a blog post that they had reached 21 million orders per month in the country. Zomato expanded its services to international markets, starting from Dubai, and went on to Europe, Qatar, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Turkey, Indonesia, North America, among other regions. In fact, last year, Zomato became a profitable company in all the 24 countries it operates in. The company, backed by Chinese giant Alibaba, reported revenues of nearly $75 million last year. But the problem that food delivery apps like Zomato face is similar to what cab-hailing apps like Uber have faced. Whether appropriate systems are in place to ensure background checks of their executives. And now we have with us Rahul Singh, an entrepreneur, the man who set up the Beer Cafe, joining us live from India's capital, New Delhi. Rahul, thank you so much for taking time out. We're talking to you as somebody who has a very successful startup, the Beer Cafe, that has outlets all across the country, and it interacts with consumers. And, you know, a one bad tweet from a consumer about your service is very important to you, just like Zomato. But the question here is all these services that involve delivery executives or service executives, you know, it could be a Zomato or an Urban Clap or an Uber. The idea of background checks and the level of implementation leaves a lot to be desired.
True, it does.
And what do you think is the problem over here? It's not like these startups are not are short of funds. They have enough and more funds. They can easily get this right. That's so important to make sure that the trust that the customers have on them is not broken.
So it's nothing to do with whether you're a startup or you're a scaled up company. You could be an enterprise. Every enterprise today was a startup someday. So I think it's nothing to do with a startup or an enterprise. It doesn't really, it depends on, things can go wrong, and that can happen to anybody. It can happen, for example, with a big company like Uber, which we already spoken about. So when you grow rapidly, and sometimes in haste, you can get in trouble. And because you're learning at the same stage as while you're unraveling your entire system, because you're growing at a breakneck speed, and sometimes the systems can falter. You also learn as you grow, and that's what probably is happening right now in any space, whether it's a startup or whether it's a completely scaled up company, because trouble can happen. Any customer facing service industry can have trouble. It can happen in a hotel. It can happen in an airline. It can happen in a hospital. So this can happen to anybody, anytime.
But Rahul, we've seen food delivery apps, even other ones, come under similar kind of fire, in terms of delivery executives. And of course, there's no question about the amount of trouble that people in India have gone through because of the drivers of some of these cab-hailing services. I don't want to take individual names. They've all, given us enough cause for concern. Sure. So there seems to be a fundamental problem in this rush to scale up and become an international, global company. Some of the foundations of the business are left unattended.
Yes, so you rightly said. So it's not the funding which matters, it's the fundamental which matters, which is an extremely important point. So I think sometimes you need to get your fundamentals right. And I'll give you, from my point of view, it could be right or wrong. When it comes to service providers in a hospitality environment, now we're talking about food in this case. We all know that after water and air, food is important for living, right? It's an important ingredient. You cannot live without food. Everybody wants food. And that's without food, it's completely a non-tolerance, a product that without food you cannot live. Now, when it comes to food, you want to have food at the right time. Sometimes when we overstretch people, so for example, when you have drivers in cab-hailing companies where they're working for 12 hours, 14 hours non-stop, they will be in trouble. Look at airlines. When pilots have to fly, if they're flying more than certain hours, they have to be grounded. So sometimes in this haste, you're not putting fundamentals in place. So for example, in the service industry, like a restaurant, all our restaurant companies, chains or none, provide free meals to all the people in the restaurant. So what happens with free meals is, if you're getting meals on time, that's the fundamental requirement. Meals are important. Once you have meals, you're having it on time, you're getting your downtime, you will serve well. You will not steal, you will not tamper, you will not get into the kitchen.
And Rahul, if I were to ask you quickly, one last question before we quickly let go of you, what is your solution or your suggestion to Zomato? What does it need to do to make sure it earns back the trust it has lost because of this incident?
One of the things, obviously, they have not reacted, which is good. They've been very open and honest, and they said, yes, it's an outlier, it's happened. We're going to improve, we'll have tamper-proof. But I think one of the fundamental things here is, please do not put people on contract. When you put on contract, you basically are not, that human capital is being wasted. When you say it's contract means, I have a business with the rider, he's my rider, he's a third party, I'm not responsible for his healthcare, I'm not responsible for his food, his meals, his time. He could work 14 hours, I don't care. That shouldn't be there. If you put everybody as your team member, make him an employee. Give him healthcare, give him free meals, give him ESI, give him provident fund, make him live.
Right.
And that's what one should do. If you have 100,000 riders, why not 100,000 employees?
Right. Rahul Singh of the Beer Cafe, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on World is One. And now we have Sven Tveitdal, Director, Klima 2020 and former UN Director, joining us from Poland. Sven, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on World is One. I'm going to ask you a simple question. This is the second hottest year on record. Isn't that alone enough evidence as to how dire the situation already is?
True. There is a lot of evidence that the globe is heating up very fast. The latest reports from the International Panel on Climate Change is saying that we have to halve emissions in until 2030 if we are going to stop the global warming on 1.5 degrees. So there is nothing more time to miss.
All right, the oldest and the thickest ice in the Arctic, they say, has declined by 95%. It's almost gone. In simple terms, can you explain to us how dangerous this is?
Extremely dangerous. The normal way we measure the ice is the area which has declined a little bit more than 50% in 30 years. But when we measure the volume, the reduction is much more. So the result of this is that maybe by the mid of the century, the North Pole will be free of ice in the middle of September. And that means that because of the albedo effect, that the Arctic will change from being a heat shield to be an accelerator of global warming.
Sven Tveitdal there joining us from Poland. Meanwhile, we have Professor Andrew Shepherd, Director of the UK Centre for Polar Observation and Modelling, joining us live from Leeds in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on World is One, Professor Andrew Shepherd. I was just discussing with Sven Tveitdal from Poland. He was saying that the situation is already dangerous. 95% of the Arctic ice is gone. Second hottest year on record. This is the need of the hour at this point in time. Is a constructive plan, a very clear plan on what we're going to do about it, because very soon we might not be able to do anything.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think every time we look at the planet, especially from satellites in space, we do see changes that are unprecedented in comparison to what we've witnessed in the geological record and the near-term record from man-made observations over the past century or so. The planet's changing really quickly these days, and in order to stop that, something will have to be done.
And this is also a conversation we're having at a time when the COP24 summit is underway in Poland, in Katowice. What are your expectations from the COP24 climate change summit? Because if that is the authority on how countries around the world, people around the world are going to start taking corrective measure for climate change, what would you want from COP24?
Well, there's been a concerted effort among the climate science community over the past year to produce a report which explains in very clear terms what the planet will look like with just a small increase in temperature over the next century. And we see very dramatic changes expected in the cryosphere. We see Arctic sea ice continuing to retreat, as we've just heard, and we see the sea level contribution due to Antarctica and Greenland expected to rise. We know that the sea level contribution already from Antarctica is higher, twice as high as expected. That's been reported just this year. I expect the people in Poland to listen to this evidence and to understand that we face a very different future depending upon the decisions that they're planning to make. In the Arctic, in the case of the Arctic, the sea ice that's retreated this summer, marks a new era where the ice retreat in summer is now beyond the northern tip of Greenland. That's not happened before at all in the past 30 years. It's really important because the ice locks itself onto the coastline usually, and if it can't do that in the future, we don't really know how rapidly it will retreat.
Andrew Shepard joining us from Leeds in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being with us here on World is One. Now, when the chief executive officer of Google was preparing to face American lawmakers, he would have anticipated various questions, but not this. A congressman asked the chief of the social media giant to explain why a Google image search for the word idiot turned up pictures of the American president, Donald Trump. Democrat Senator Zoe Lofgren even performed a spontaneous search for the term to prove her point. She was unwilling to accept the idea that Google is politically manipulating results. Pichai tried hard to explain to tech novices the workings of the search engine.
Signals. Things like relevance, freshness, popularity, how other people are using it. And based on that, at any given time, we try to rank and find the best results for that query. And then we evaluate them with external raters to make sure that, and they evaluate it to objective guidelines.
But the senator was not willing to let Pichai off the hook just yet. She asked him, and I quote, "So it's not some little man sitting behind the curtain figuring out what we're going to show the user?" To which Pichai responded by explaining that a person or a group of people can't manually intervene on any particular search result. Now, keeping it with the US and US President Donald Trump, he was openly caught fighting with two top Democratic lawmakers at an Oval Office meeting about government funding for his border wall. In a remarkable public argument, Trump bickered with the US Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi about funding for his border wall. The president has called for $5 billion to fund the barrier along the US-Mexico border, a campaign promise that he has made into a central issue. Of late, he ended the argument by saying that he was willing to make good on his repeated threat to shut down the federal government over the issue.
We come in here, the first branch of government, the uncertain time in their lives.
One thing I think we can agree on is we shouldn't shut down the government over a dispute. And you want to shut it down. You keep talking about it.
The last time, Chuck, you shut it down.
No.
And then you opened it up very quickly. And
20 times.
I don't want to do what you did.
20 times you have called for, I will shut down the government if I don't get my wall. None of us have said.
You want to know something?
You've said it.
Okay, you want to put that on my...
You've said it.
I'll take it.
Okay, good.
You know what I'll say? Yes. If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And I am proud, and I'll tell you what,
disagree.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck, because the people of this country don't want criminals and people that have lots of problems and drugs pouring into our country. So I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it. The last time you shut it down, it didn't work. I will take the mantle of shutting down. And I'm going to shut it down for border security.
But we believe you shouldn't shut it down.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Congress is seeking to finalize spending before some federal government funding expires on the 21st of December, while Trump's fellow Republicans control both the House and the Senate. Only until next month, Democratic support is needed to pass any pending legislation after that. It was unclear how Trump would try to use the U.S. Department of Defense to build the wall. The defense and military construction appropriation bills were signed into law for the 2019 fiscal year without any wall funding included in it. Away from all of that, would you like to take a crash course to become Santa Claus this Christmas? We take you to Brazil, where trainees take classes to become the perfect Santa Claus. Merry, kind, and most importantly, sensitive to children by learning how to not touch them inappropriately.
This is a workshop for Brazilian Santas where the trainees learn how to make Christmas not just a happier but also a safer holiday for children. Trainees at this free Santa crash course have been taking the intensive course every year since 1976 by actor Silvio Ribeiro.
The greatest happiness is really seeing the smile on the face of the child, the adults and the elderly. This is very important, very rewarding, because we are sure that we are doing the right thing in the right place. This is a detail that I care about on my course, because Santa is all about love, sympathy and joy.
But being Santa Claus isn't just a holiday job. It doesn't just mean being merry. It also comes with a huge responsibility of ensuring that children feel safe. After one of his students was accused of pedophilia, Ribeiro takes classes with the trainee Santas on handling children with sensitivity and care, apart from teaching makeup and other Santa skills. Ribeiro uses a doll to explain how only female assistants could fix a little girl's dress or put them in Santa's lap, and kissing kids is an absolute no-no, and only kids are allowed to initiate, not the other way around. Once thoroughly trained, these Santas can earn up to $150 for doing 5-hour shifts at malls, stores and other holiday season parties. Bureau Report, Wion, World is One.